We're going to get right into the material. I know there's been quite a bit of questions and really getting behind what are SEC filings specifically. What's the reason behind them, and even more importantly, how do traders, analysts use them to provide color for themselves on a daily basis, and both for the shorter term and the longer term. So obviously, I'm not going to read through this entire list, but certainly you've seen some of these, whether it's a Form 4, Form SC13Gs, Ds, GAs, DAs. We'll get into all of those, but all of this information is provided to you in the trade exchange form. You hear it in the squawk, and it's compiled for you in the feed as well. So, folks, let's dive into this. And again, if there are any questions as we go through this information, certainly feel free to chime in and ask questions. We'll be more than glad to answer them. So, what's an SEC filing, right? So an SEC filing is a financial statement or other formal document submitted to the U.S. Securities and Exchange, SEC. It's for public companies. Certain insiders, broker-dealers are required to make regular SEC filings. So it's mandated by the SEC for insiders of public companies. So with respect to Form 4, we'll get into the Form 4s, exactly what they do, what it looks like. Insiders are C-suite level employees, right? Anyone as a CEO, obviously Chief Executive Officer, Chief Financial Officer, Chief Marketing Officer, Chief Operating Officer, Senior Vice President. Also, insiders are director level, 10% owners, anyone who has substantial holdings of the company. You're bound by regulations to submit information with respect to that. So again, employees or investors of the company. This could be individuals or firms that purchase shares in the open market. And again, this is the reporting of the transaction in a way to alert the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission, of the occurrence. And one of the things specifically in Form 4s that we wanted to talk about specifically, you'll realize that as members of the trade exchange, subscribers of the trade exchange, you'll notice that we mostly provide information on purchases of Form 4s, not specifically on selling of shares. And we'll get it. Although if you were in the forum today, there was information on NVDA, but why mostly buys, right? So what's the rationale behind that? If you speak to analysts, if you speak to traders, it's kind of interesting here. So look at it this way: shares of companies come into the quote-unquote accounts of insiders, whether it's CEOs or directors, so forth, through various number of ways. It could be of using, through stock options, via bonuses or, regular payouts or part of their compensation plan. It could be gifting. It could be transfer of ownership. So there's a number of ways that insiders can get these shares. And so let's just do an example. For instance, if you're a CEO of a company, and let's say you regularly receive shares through stock options. This is part of your compensation. You're regularly going to sell those shares, a bit of those shares. It could be for a myriad of reasons, and it could be really mundane reasons. If you could be selling, let's say a stock is at 100, you're selling 100 shares, Perhaps you're purchasing a car. Perhaps you're purchasing for your college tuition. These are normal events that happen with insiders. It's what happens, okay? But the focus here is in terms of Form 4 filings. A Form 4 is a document that must be filed with the Securities and Exchange Commission whenever there is a material change in the holdings of company insiders. So, in terms of Form 4s, you're purchasing, an insider is purchasing. Now, keep something in mind. A Form 4 purchase means that the insider goes out into the open market through their brokerage account and purchases shares in the open market. And this is a big deal, folks. That's why this is critical information. That's why traders look at this information, institutional desks, analysts, sell side, buy side. Why? Because these insiders have a consistent choice of what they're purchasing. They can go and buy Netflix or IBM or any other stock. They choose to, with their own capital, go out and purchase more shares of this of a particular company, and that is absolutely critical. And that's why we consistently report on this. Whether, as you see, two examples here, and we'll go into specifically what it looks like in the trade exchange form. Sometimes you may see it. Maybe you're not used to the way it's portrayed or positioned into the trade exchange form. So clearly, we'll take KIN for example. You see the symbol. It's a obviously symbol. Then Form 4, letting you know that it's a Form 4 filing. And in this case, 10% owner. In this case, Park West, purchasing over 131,000 shares in the open market at $5.30. In the same way, TGEN, Form 4 director, purchasing 25,000 shares at $4. So clearly it's a $100,000 investment into the company by the director that's working with the company. And the main thing is especially with directors, what's interesting here, folks, is that this is it's not a CEO, right? It's not C-suite level, but even more of what we were talking about, even more important to watch what the directors do, because they're perhaps more on the operation side, see what's happening internally in the company, and they go out with their own money and purchase these shares, in the open market. So in terms of timing requirements, it's typically within a few days of the actual purchase. Sometimes it's very quick, as quick as it's being reported to SEC, and SEC comes out with this information. Our algorithms and our proprietary mechanisms catch on to that, and they provide the more the relevant information specifically on the security. So let's move on. So that's Form 4. We want to get into, we see a lot of these, especially recently, Form SC13Gs. 13G is an SEC, Security and Exchange Commission form similar to Schedule 13D, used to report a party's ownership of stock that is over 5% of the company. Schedule G is shorter and requires less information from the filing party than 13D. The Schedule D form tends to be directed for more quote-unquote passive investors. A passive investor is not intended to place control or require changes to be made to the company. And before we get to the actual example, keep in mind a non-passive investor is someone like a Pelt, so someone like an Icon, someone who will go into this investment, whatever we'll show you an example of a 13D. There could be a opportunity for that to be non-passive. They may want to get on the board. They may want to start making changes to the company, whether it's strategic investment, strategy, whatever it is. In this case, in the 13Gs, and this is really important, you see a lot of this coming through the Trade Exchange Forum, and you hear it on the Squawk, and we'll show you how to get into the into the market stream. This is a passive, folks, a passive report to the SEC. So, for example, RADA. You see the symbol clearly. You see the form definition, form SC 13G, filed by Ron Senator. This is from this morning, reporting a 6.78% in the particular name. So that's important to know. Again, passive investor, and over 5%. Okay, so that's something. Again, typically within 10 days of purchase, they have to report to the SEC, and obviously once it's reported to the SEC, and it's communicated to our subscribers. Okay. 13D is a little bit different, where it's a longer form, again over 5%, but this is the intention is a non-passive, meaning in this particular example, LFL, form SC13D filed by Qatar Airways, 10% holder, right? So you now, does this open the possibility of them sitting on boards, them perhaps making more strategic investments in the name? And again, this is something that's provided to you. So again, you'll see the symbol, form SC13D filed by Qatar Airways, 10%. So you always have that structure around that information that is provided in the form and squawked as well. So one of the things that we've been finding quite a bit recently, which is kind of an interesting thing, and some questions about this, what's the difference? So we discussed the 13 Gs. Obviously, it's over 5% passive. 13 Ds, over 5% non-passive. And then you have your /As or amendments. It's pretty straightforward. It's an amendment to a previous 13G filing or 13D filing. Now, this can be an increase or this can be a decrease. Okay, it just depends on the situation. So, and we'll get into LOXO when we show you how to access some of this information in the market stream, and go back to months of information and see how it works. But it's similar format and how it's provided to you in the form. So in this case, it's LOXO, form SC13D/A amendment filing. OrbiMed at 6.76%, and at GENE, SC13G, remember, non-passive A amendment filed by Sabi Investment at 6.59, Sabi amendment at 6.59%. So that's a really important determination, especially when you're seeing that come through. So if you're seeing a pure 13D, it's kind of a new filing, and an A/A, it's an amendment to a previous filing. So I think that's really important to note. And again, feel free to reach out to ask any questions. So let's get into S3s. There's a number of ways that we communicate S3s. Basically, these are offering of shares. Could be a automatic shelf offering, could be a mixed shelf, different types of S3s. So Form S3, the filing of this form sometimes precedes an initial public offering and is generally filed concurrent with common stock or preferred stock offerings. S3 form is simplified security registration form utilized by businesses that have already met reporting requirements. The form registers securities under the Securities Act of 1933 for U.S.-based companies only. So in this case, you typically see these S3s, and we'll show you in the morning mashup, excuse me, in the morning mashup in terms of syndicates. Folks, this is a way, a public offering of common stock. This is a way for the for the stock for the company to raise capital, right? Once they have the opportunity to raise capital through common stock, they can use it for a myriad of reasons, including R&D, or maybe there's a strategic opportunity for them. Maybe there's various other opportunities for them, and it could be it's non-industry specific. So it could be a biotech, it could be an oil name, it could be a shipping name. We've seen those rather active, especially recently, and that's an important note. So again, you would see this as an example. You saw this just yesterday into this morning. ZYNE, Zynerba Pharmaceuticals, announces proposed public offering of common stock. And again, you have the blurb right there in terms of specifics on the pricing, in terms of price, in terms of shares. And in the syndicate, you also have your lead managers, and we'll show you on those particular offerings. So again, a great way to see what's kind of on the minds of companies as they're going for these offerings. And again, the impact in the market, we'll show you in just a couple of examples what impact this type of information may have according to the market populace, and that's something really important. Okay, so similar type of S3 ASR or /ASR could be a shelf registration, and remember, there's a number of different ways that that they can raise capital. It could be from debt, it could be a combination. Sometimes you see these mixed shelves. Mixed shelves are could be a combination of preferreds, commons, common stock, preferred stock. It could be convertible. It could be debt. It could be a nice mixture, and that's what typically you see in quote unquote mixed shelf. But again, all of that is an attempt by the company to raise capital. So again, it's something that's constantly provided for us through the trade exchange. So Form 8K, we sometimes see you see this throughout the day for various reasons. Form 8K. So there are press releases. There are press releases. You see these in the trade exchange form. Hear them in the squawk. Press releases are information that a company wants to divulge into the public, into the ethos, if you will, and put out information that may be concerning their company. And 8K goes a step further. And 8K is a quote unquote current report companies must file with the SEC to announce major events that shareholders should know about. So in this case, this is rather recent. So EPZM Form 8K, so this is exactly the way that you see it. In response to the company's written request, Epizyme received a positive written response from the U.S. FDA, allowing enrollment of patients with follicular lymphoma. And it goes on to get into a little bit more specific, because that's an 8K. The company felt compelled to file with the SEC because it could have material impact on the name, on the company. So again, that's what that means, and it's necessary. It's an information that is necessary to provide to the SEC because it legitimately can have a material impact on volatility, price action, and perception of the company. So again, that's something that will is rather important. Okay, 6K. We know that let's call it most of the stocks that we see and are U.S. based, right? Companies that have their headquarters in the U.S. They're registered with the NYSE or the Nasdaq, the New York Stock Exchange or Nasdaq. But there are companies that are ADRs, right? They're foreign entities, and for them, the kind of an 8K equivalent, quote unquote, is the 6K. So, is the SEC filing submitted to the SEC Securities and Exchange Commission used by certain foreign private issuers to provide information that is required to be made public in the country of its domicile. So in this case, we have an example of a 6K HMY commenting on the illegal sit-in at one of its mines, and this is dated January 12th from Johannesburg. But again, it's important enough that the company felt obliged to submit to the SEC and comment on certain something that may impact whether it's by perception or market perception of the actual stock. Okay, so we'll move on, and of course the S1 is an IPO. Basically, they're filing to file an IPO. Pretty straightforward. And the way you would read at the very top is approximate date of commencement of proposed sale to the public as soon as practicable after this registration statement becomes effective. Again, as you see, these type of forms are consistently submitted to the SEC. There's a reason. There's a kind of a central database of information, and it's important to really keep a very, very close eye on the type of activity that is filtered through or provided to the SEC. And before we get to the actual examples, is remember the SC13Ds, Form 4s. It's a great window, a beautiful window into the minds of large investors, funds, insiders. So that's something really important to watch. And traders look at this consistently and monitor this consistently and add color using this in their overall trading mechanism, whether you're a scalper or a day trader or whether you're a portfolio manager, wherever you are on that spectrum, you find this information absolutely critical, and that's why we provide this for you. So one of the things I wanted just to tell you, this is a really kind of interesting example on LOXO. So basically the filing of the SC13DA, we mentioned this before, this is an amendment, D, so it's a longer filing, non-passive, or Orbimed at 6.76%. And you saw the impact, as you see in the chart there. Obviously, it's just a pretty basic 1 minute chart, folks, in LOXO. And you see the volume coming up there, coming in on the heels of this information, and kind of a steady uptrend in the name. And that's rather indicative of market perception, judging by this judging this information. So again, wanted just to briefly show this particular this example to you in LOXO. Also, this is literally just from this morning, right? We talked about what the perception may be initially on a offering of common stock, right? So in this case, it's an S3, SZYNE, Zynerba Pharmaceuticals, announces a proposed public offering of common stock. And you saw the actual larger paragraph that goes into that particular information. But you see the difference. So clearly in this case, so whenever there's a public offering of common stock, one has to, or a question about public offering of common stock, one has to, as a trader, as an analyst, as a market participant, you have to look at this as a question of, is it accretive or is it dilutive? Any action specifically with this type of information, does it dilute the shares, right? Obviously, it's a public offering, so there's more offering of common stock. So clearly, the perception initially is that it clearly is dilutive, and you see a decrease in the stock right at the open. And this is, I don't want to say it's typical, but every situation is different. Some are a little bit more extreme than others. But in this case, we certainly saw a considerable decrease in pre-market activity in ZYNE on the heels of the public offering of common stock. Again, and again, these are really simple charts, folks. We see that that gap down in the morning. That from a technical perspective, rather, I wouldn't say it's severe, but it's enough to catch your eye in pre-market. Okay, so one of the things that I want to do now is to take you. I'm not sure how many of you utilize the Trade Exchange or TX Market Stream consistently. You really should. And here's why. It allows you this great way of adding color to your day-to-day trading. Okay, so what you would do is you would go to the tradeexchange.com under members. You would just click on TX Market Stream. If you don't have the credentials, certainly reach out to us. We can certainly provide that to you at your convenience. So I'm going to screen share a current market stream that I have at the moment. I want to make sure, can all of you see that in some capacity? I want to make sure we can do that, okay? So what I've done right now is I've in anticipation of us discussing LOXO, so what I've done is I'm going to just type this in right now. So I'm going to click on reset at the very top, and I'm going to type in LOXO, and I'm going to click on apply. And what this does, by searching by symbol, and if you haven't done this, folks, it's a really great tool. And this clearly shows you, right? So it shows you the most recent thing on LOXO. We have the SC13DA, obviously Amendment D, longer form, non-passive, from OrbiMed at 6.76%. And then you actually go through all the LOXOs, and you see there's quite a bit of activity going from, you can even go back to July on LOXO. LOXO Oncology receives breakthrough therapy designation from US FDA for LOXO 101. And again, this is something that's it's available to you folks, and you should really do this research because it's not just a one-time post. You need to go back and it'll absolutely provide greater clarity, greater color to your trading. Doesn't matter whether you're a scalper, day trader, or a longer term type of trader. It's a wonderful tool. Even if you go back to the same day that another maybe filing took place, maybe you go back to September 23rd, LOXO and SC13G. We talked about 13Gs. Remember, shorter form, over 5%, Victory Capital Management at 7%. You go back and check out the chart for that day and see what volatility, what type of price action ensued on the heels of that type of filing. So you get your head around in such a better and clearer way, and it's great for you guys to just it's another wonderful way to stay informed of what's really happening in the particular name, and to do your research. And why do we do this? Why do we provide this information in such a format for you? Because we know that portfolio managers use this type of information. That's how they gather information. Folks on large prop desks, institutional desks, that's how folks gather information and make an opinion with whatever theory you're using or technique you're using for trading. That's the type of information that is absolutely critical for you personally to do your research, right? So I'm just going to really quickly switch back. The other stock I'm going to look for is RADA. Okay, so here we are back at the market stream. I'm going to just type in RADA and just click on apply. Okay, and this automatically filters by symbol, and it tells you and goes back to all of the things that happen in RADA, and what a great tool this is for each trader to see the type of activity, whether it's whether it's earnings, or whether it's another filing, or maybe it's a Zozo stock watch coming up on volume, or a volume pop on an earnings per share. Again, all of this information is used by the trader consistently to provide that. Yes, no, I've just been told I'm not going to. Yeah, no, I'm not going to scroll. I realize that it's slightly pixelated, and sorry about that, folks. But but again, market stream is something that is absolutely critical for you folks to consistently monitor and do your research on. And it's available. It actually goes back a full calendar year of information, which is just and again, this information is based on the information from the Trade Exchange forum and Squawk Audio, and it's so yeah, so you want to put into the symbol, type in the symbol in the actual symbol. So, and click on apply, or click on reset first, type in the symbol, and type in the symbol and click on apply, and that would filter it that way. Okay, so yeah, so absolutely, if you haven't had the opportunity, you absolutely should discover the market stream. It's a wonderful tool. Does it have an alert service? Yes, we do alert you. There's a little bit of like a sound. It is updated automatically for you. So if you just keep it up, you can it's pushed to you. Without getting too technical, it's called an asynchronous sync, and or asynchronous push, and it's just given to you, and you don't have to update it. Very similar to the way the forum works. This is the way. So there's a little beep on when a new information comes in there. Also on Zozo level watch alert, there is a kind of a bell to alert you to when there's a new level watch alert in the stream. So yes, there is sound alerts on that, and yes, it's available on mobile as well, and we'll get into that in just a moment. So if there are no other questions specifically on the market stream, we're going to move on to our next slide as we're beginning to conclude this. The other piece I really wanted to spend some time on that is absolutely at all of your disposals on a every morning and every evening basis is the daily analytics. Okay, if you for example, if you click on that picture, see if you can click on that picture in front of you, it'll actually take you to the morning mashup link, and we can actually post the morning mashup link for you. I'm actually going to post that for you right now, so you can actually kind of follow along, if you will. So I'm going to screen share that, so just bear with me one moment, okay? Okay, So that's going to come up in just a moment. And this is, you can see it again on mobile. You can see it on your desktop. There's a number of ways to see it. This is the PDF version. This is from this morning. And one of the things that's relating specifically to the SEC filings is, you'll forgive, I have to scroll down to this just very quickly to show you where this is. Typically on the fourth page. So just give it a moment just to update. I know it's slightly pixelated there, but I want to. These are the syndicates, folks. This comes out from our analyst desk and compiled for you. And it's what we talked about. It's the syndicates. It's as you see, on AA, S1, or S3, or common stock offering and warrants. This is information that is absolutely critical for you to see on a daily, and it's delivered to you as a link into the forum at approximately 7:40, 7:45 in the morning, and it's provided to you in an email form, and it's also available to you in the mobile app as well. So I would be remiss if I didn't say this is an absolute necessity for you to watch, to read on a daily basis, folks. Because why? Because whether you're trading on your own or whether you're part of a large desk, industry professionals read this type of information on a daily basis. So it's gold, folks. There's no other way of putting it. It's what you need to start your day to understand what matters to you on a daily basis. Okay, so I don't want to scroll anymore. I know it becomes a little bit pixelated. So, but again, that's the morning mashup, and there's also a market wrap up as well, and take a look at that as well. It's under the daily analytics, and it's posted typically by 4:30 p.m. On every trading day. Okay, and yes, we do have mobile apps. If you go under members and mobile access, it's available for Android and iOS. It's rather dynamic. The response has been rather positive in the way the app works, and you can do just about anything you need to on that app that you would typically do on a